Welcome, everybody, to the Finding Hermes podcast. I hope you're ready to walk through the doors with the God of the mind, those doors you need to walk through to find your authentic self. And with us, we have the pleasure of being joined by Gail Lynn, and I'm glad we're connecting after quite a few tech archons before we finally got on Zoom. Gail, thanks for making it here digitally finally.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, sorry about the technical issues, but we made it work.
Oh, it happens all the time. So again, you have to have different backup plans and kind of like life. Same thing here in the Matrix.
Absolutely.
So wonderful. I really enjoyed your book. I wrote a lot of notes. Your book, Unlocking the Ancient Secrets of Healing. As we were talking, I saw a lot of parallels with my life. I think your work is helping a lot of people. And of course, as they say, you've eaten your own dog food. So it's not like you're just coming from some theoretical place. But let's start a little bit about yourself and who you are. It seems, I'm sure, looking back, you're saying to yourself, "I was made for this," and it starts all the way back in Detroit, in the car business, and eventually becoming an engineer. Or when do you think the voyage started? The fates that were sending you to what you became today.
Well, obviously it started when I was born, but I didn't know it until I was probably 40. And then I look back and I say, oh my gosh, the universe put me in all these situations for a reason, from, being molested by the priest of the parish to walk away from God, only to end up dating an evangelist. I mean, the comedy of errors and coincidences and serendipities were just hilarious. And I kind of had to be an engineer to develop this. And then I had to know about international business. So I had to get into the telecom business. And then I had to marry a shaman, of course, and go to, Peru. And then that had to fail for me to meet the evangelist to to get into Hollywood. And then to have this whole experience blow up in my face of life, with a completely stressful situation in the Hollywood arena, and then having severe cardiovascular stress and on the verge of a heart attack at age 37. So the universe was hilarious, the way that everything, now I can see the puzzle pieces fitting together.
Oh yeah, it's quite a journey. So when would you say you were an engineer? You're doing very well with, I guess, left-brained life, money, hours, office, the usual formula. You said you were introduced to this huge universe of esoteric topics by an individual. Well, you name him in your book, Travis. And he was the one who kind of opened the doors that there was a world of all these different religions and modalities and all that.
Yes. And it was such an amazing journey. We probably should have stayed business partners instead of, gotten married, because we were great in business together. And he taught me so much. In 5 years, it was like probably a PhD education. And so here's his mom as a literature teacher. And here's me coming out of Detroit with a dad who had a seventh grade education and a mom who just had a high school diploma. So think about being a literature teacher and hearing somebody say, "I seen that. I had went there." Oh my gosh, how embarrassing, right? So she's like, "Listen, honey, we gotta." I mean, I was used to eating off of paper plates with plastic silverware a lot, and so they showed me, about the butter knife and the salad fork, and it was just really a PhD in life and spirituality and literature, and introduced me to Buckminster Fuller and Ayn Rand, and just so many different books that opened up my mind and traveled all over the world. It was such a beautiful thing and very divine.
Yeah, and for the audience, Gail's book is wonderful because she gives an honest account that she's sharing right now of her life and what led her. But the book also is divided into the scientific and the data about alternative medicine, healing, and all that, which we will get into. And then, of course, there's the idea of your creation, the healing egg and what you're doing today to help people get better. So it's almost like you get this trinity, this wonderful trinity in a book. You mentioned movie business and evangelical. Could you share with the audience a little bit about that? That's also a wonderful part of your life that almost seems to start with somebody turning and saying, "Well, we've never done a movie, we've never done a documentary," and you saying something like, "Well, why don't we?" And suddenly 7 years go by.
Yeah, one of the stupidest comments I ever made. So after I got divorced, I was angry, because we had spent a lot of years together. And of course, we go to Peru. Truth is stranger than fiction. He leaves me for the assistant tour guide while we're on our trip to Peru. I'm like, what is happening? And then she wants me to talk to her. I have a little bit of Spanish background. He doesn't have any. He's telling me, can you tell her how much I love her? I'm like, did I enter a Twilight Zone here? So I get home from this trip and it was just bizarre. And I go to a Chinese restaurant with some friends and I see that next door it says ladies self-defense, kickboxing, karate. I'm like, I'm going in there. I'm going in and I'm signing up because I'm going to kick the shit out of something. So I end up going in there. It's a Kempo karate school. And I end up finding out one of the seminars we were going to have, Elvis Presley's stepbrother is going to come in and do a seminar with us for the weekend. And I'm thinking, oh boy, some guy's thinking he knows Elvis, right? That's like knowing Mickey Mouse. So he comes in and Elvis was an 8th degree black belt in Kempo karate. He was a 5th degree. His name's David Stanley. He was the stepbrother to Elvis Presley. I start questioning him. I'm like, you didn't know Elvis, you crazy, right? So next thing you know, he slams me down onto the mat. I'm looking up at him and, we just kind of have this fun relationship over the weekend. And he starts bringing in books of him and Elvis. Look, this is me and Elvis. And this is Elvis on tour. And I toured with him. And I said, oh, well, okay. I guess you did know Elvis. His mom, Dee Stanley, married Vernon Presley. After Gladys passed away, he moved into the Graceland mansion and he says, I didn't know what blue suede shoes were. I didn't know what an Elvis Presley was, but he found himself living in the Graceland mansion. So he was a motivational speaker and an evangelist because when Elvis passed away, he didn't have like a college degree. All he knew was, protecting Elvis, but everybody wanted to know his story. So he ended up speaking in the pulpit, his story, and, being inspirational and motivational, a very big presence, but he learned stage presence from Elvis. Mm-hmm. So he learned a lot. I mean, his formative years, ages 4 to like 26 or 27, were with Elvis Presley. Wild. He was on tour with him. So, he says, well, wouldn't it be a cool movie to talk about behind the scenes on tour with Elvis? I said, well, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. And he had such a presence, but he thought he was a motivational speaker. And, so the story goes on. He said, Elvis could do anything. How can I be bigger than my father figure, my mentor, my friend, my big brother, my boss? And I said, well, there's got to be something Elvis couldn't do. He said, no, I mean, literally, he could walk into the president's office and take things out of the drawer. He could bring a gun and just drop it on the table and then into the White House. He would get police badges from every city he visited because they just give him one. He had a DEA badge or something. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, what couldn't he do? He said, well, he always wanted to direct a film. Okay, well, then you can direct a film. So he says, oh, yeah. So have you ever made a movie? I said, no, but how hard can it be? So that was a stupid statement that I said. And, it really wasn't that difficult. If you really break it down into steps and stages, it did take 7 years. We raised millions of dollars. We went to DVD, didn't go into the theaters. We premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in France and walked the red carpet. It was amazing. But when I set my mind to something, there's not much that can stop me from accomplishing it. So the one thing is he's never done another movie. So I guess I had some influence in him doing the first movie. So
Yeah, and you had there was some interference or pushback beyond just making how hard it is to make a movie, because in this documentary you weren't just showing, it wasn't a hagiography or whatever they call it of Elvis. It was, you were showing the dark side of Elvis and his light side.
yeah, we showed the truth. We have E&O insurance, so it's errors and omissions. So everything had to be proved to be true. Otherwise, we couldn't put it out there. The estate did challenge David on many occasions. We actually were going to film in Utah, but there's a religious organization there that some of the family's a part of. And so we gave our deposits and they returned them and said, you cannot film here. So it worked out great because we went to LA, which has a deeper film crew. So we knew that if the focus puller quit that day, we could get another focus puller. I mean, if you shoot in some kind of a city where they don't have a deep film crew, once you turn cameras on, you're spending money. And it's like, money's going out the window pretty quickly. So it worked out perfectly. Divine intervention, I guess. But David brought me back to God, to his teachings, because when I was molested by the priest at 14, that's my image of God. The priest is God. You don't know any different when you're 14. So I thought it was quite comical that the universe brings me back to that, and the evangelical ways of David. And he was one extreme, and the priest that I interacted with was another extreme. So really funny to watch my life and to watch the different situations and the people that came into it. So we had a lot of challenges with the estate. We couldn't use the word Elvis. We couldn't use anything with his name and likeness because it's trademarked, it's protected. Mm-hmm. But to be honest with you, he said we always called Elvis boss anyway. Hey, boss. So we called it Protecting the King. So that was the name of the movie. We didn't say Elvis, and trust me, everybody knew who it was when you see the movie. But it was the behind the scenes. It was the craziness that he was, and the loving that he was, and the sharing that he was. But he wasn't all about apple pies and peanut butter and banana sandwiches, which David said he never had seen Elvis eat a peanut butter and banana sandwich. Oh. So where does that come from? And he said he really didn't talk like, thank you very much. He said he really didn't talk like that. So
the man became a myth faster than anybody.
I'm telling you, that's why I said it's like knowing Mickey Mouse.
Well, that happens when you're larger than life. I mean, you're talking, seeing the president. I've done shows on Elvis, fascinating. And yeah, he was, it was interesting because he was a lot like Philip K. Dick, my hero of this show, that generation thought that street drugs were bad, and they were bad in the 60s. They were destroying people all over. I'm against the war on drugs, but there was a problem. But they were fine with prescription drugs. They would pop pills, both characters left and right. And well, one of them got destroyed for it, or his life got shortened. But yeah, Elvis really was the only time this country had a real king, because he was on the topic of drugs. He was pissed off about drugs, and he got on, I think, a passenger plane. It's not like he just went and left his house, bought tickets. People on the airplane are freaking out. I think he told the pilot, stop the plane because there were some people late, and the pilot's like, yes, sir. And he walks up to the White House, literally walks on the door, and people are like telling President Nixon, Elvis is here. And Nixon's like, I have to let him in. I mean, that's what you did with Elvis. If he came to you, he really was the king of this country in many ways. He was bigger than the president, than the army, than any religious leader.
Well, I think that there was something very special about him because of the stories. And there are some of these guys that were part of the Memphis Mafia that will go to their deathbed, and some of them have, without telling stories that could damage him. And, I know a few, but, I'm not interested in damaging Elvis. But what I would say is that the stories that David told me, like he would say, Elvis, they're sitting by the pool. Elvis, the sun went, behind the clouds. And he said Elvis would put his hand up and almost move the clouds.
I
Like
believe
it's no
it.
wonder why that, there's these stories that I've heard. And I know when I went to Peru, I saw somebody pick up a coal that was on fire and light their cigarette and put it back. So, if I didn't see that, I wouldn't believe it. And I'm not sure that I believe that they were in a Colorado ski area. I don't know if it was Vail or Aspen. I can't remember where he went. But he said a guy, bone sticking out of his leg. He said Elvis just put his hand over it and the bone went back in. Like, what? So it's no wonder why we still revere this guy after, 40 years? He died in 77. I don't know how many years that is. Somebody knows out there.
Yeah, his anniversary was recently. Yeah.
August 16th. Actually, today. Oh my God. August 16th, 1977. Weird. Okay, there's no accidents. And I haven't talked about Elvis on any of my podcasts recently. How weird. But I wanted to tell you, though, that he really did come through, because I said, if there was somebody in this world, and I don't really want to meet anybody, I'm not starstruck. We all put our pants on the same way. But if there was somebody that I would want to meet, it would have been Elvis, because David said you could feel him walk into the room. He said, when I pulled up to the house the day that he died, he said, I knew he was in the house, but I didn't feel him in the house. And this is a 20-some-year-old man. Guys aren't as tuned in sometimes as women. So, and David was immature and, just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But he knew enough to say, I don't feel Elvis. He's in that house, but I don't feel him. Weird, right? And so today, the anniversary of his death. And if there was somebody I would have wanted to meet, would have been Elvis. And I remember after the movie was over, I was meditating one day and I felt a presence that just said thank you to me. And I think it was Elvis, because David never really knew who he was. He was always in the shadows of the king, if you will. And I think he even wrote a book, The Shadows of the King, and not knowing who his friends were or who really liked him because of who he was or who he was, right? So I just remember this big presence coming into my meditation and just saying thank you for giving David his dream. And I just started crying, and it was weird.
It's amazing. And you were brought back to Christianity, or to heal yourself from the damage that a church did to you. But from what I studied, Elvis was a firm believer, but fundamentalist or evangelical Christianity was very different in the 50s and the 60s, and he was into theosophy. He read the Gospel of Thomas. So Elvis knew about the Gnostics. Being the king, he had to know about all his subjects, right? So is that the kind of Christianity that you came back that David was teaching? That kind of mystical, broad Christianity?
I guess what David interpreted when he was in his 20s, that Elvis said that the Bible was the book. Mm-hmm. He read the Book of Mormons. He read the King James Bible. He read everything. He read a book called The Impersonal Life. And there was so many books that he read. And so David's interpretation was the Bible is it. Whether it was or not, you don't know when a 26-year-old kid, So I was raised Catholic, but I didn't come back to the organized religion in a sense. I came back to we are all one. More of the Buddhist belief of, we need to be good to each other. We need to love each other. We need more kindness. We need to open up our hearts, and we need to support each other in this journey that no one gets out alive. Mm-hmm. And life is short, and sometimes I just get mad at myself too for having stressful days. I'm like, why am I stressed out? Because I have 100 emails to respond to. Who cares? Who really cares? But I do, and I don't want to ever disappoint anybody or let anybody down. And so I think that's why I was somewhat chosen to get this download, which I know that the download comes and a lot of people get it. But who's going to grab it? Who's going to do something with it? It's not like I'm real smart. It's just that I listen. And this was important enough to me to invest in, to build, and to bring it to fruition. Because what I saw in the visions was that it was going to help humanity to find their God peace, to find the peace that they are, that is God, to connect to that, to take back their freaking power that has been taken, and to know that they are some piece of God and that they are powerful. And we do have gifts that we don't tap into because we do not spend enough time inside in listening to our bodies. And that's what the harmonic egg does. I mean, it brings you to that higher self. It lifts the veil. You can see. I mean, my intuition is through the roof now. I can talk to animals. I can talk to the trees. I can talk to the land spirits. And if you told me I was going to do this when I was living in Detroit in a, blue collar environment with a factory worker dad, I would have thought maybe you go to the cuckoo nest, right?
Yeah, that's new age woo-woo stuff, age of Aquarius stuff. But like you said, this is a natural part of what humans are and what animals know, telepathy, healing, all that. And we were talking about Elvis. He was probably a natural born shaman or a healer, a Reiki master. He was just a natural at it, but he decided to go with music. He probably would have been healing people by the river as he baptized them if he hadn't. But like you said, this is an ability we really all have. My uncle, I have family who are healers. And like you said, they put their hand on you and you can feel these currents just taking over. So I would agree with you, and well said. But what led you really to the before the harmonic egg creation? Because it seems to be your health was challenged. There was, I believe, migraines, a car wreck, anxiety. Was it all three, or what really propelled you to, this is it, I'm going to create something based on ancient modalities that have worked, recovering, and that is also backed up by science and data?
Yeah, that's interesting. Probably started when I was 17 years old and I got a job as a receptionist at a doctor's office. And I was dating a guy, his grandmother came to that clinic and they had a diet program there where they were giving all these old ladies speed. And they're like, I feel so good. And I would look at the charts. Here, I'm 17 years old. I look at the charts and I'm like, Dr. So-and-so, I won't say his name. I'm like, Kenny's grandmother has been coming here for 20 years and she's gained weight. If you look at her chart. And he's like, yeah, well, she says, you know what? That makes me feel so good. And she's speeding around the house, cleaning and cooking and doing all this stuff. And I thought, this is messed up. So I got fired because I was questioning the doctors. Somebody would come in for their pain pills. And I said, no. You can't get these for 30 days. You took too many of them. It says, and I'm 17. What is wrong with me? Right. And I realized I had a photographic memory. A lady would walk up to the window, a guy, I knew all their names and I knew where their folders were. And they used to compliment that. They'd say, you remember us when we come back. I'm like, yeah, well, doesn't everybody remember all these people? And they had thousands of patients, thousands. They got shut down. Pharmacies stopped taking the main doctor's prescriptions because people were taking the pain meds and getting them too often, selling them on the streets. It was a hot mess. But when I questioned it, I got fired. And I think it started then when I started getting migraine headaches when I was 17, and I had no idea why. But Western medicine was zero help to me. Zero help. So, I go on through the years and I realize my mom's overweight. My mom's on the verge of diabetes. How can I help her? I start researching things, always wanting to help other people. When I was probably, I want to say it was 13 or 14, I bought my dad Antabuse for a Christmas present so he would stop drinking. When you take Antabuse and you drink, it makes you throw up. What am I doing, right? I mean, who is this little girl? Like I never thought anything different than this is how everybody should be, right? You should be concerned about people and trying to help them. So as fast forward to age 37, that's when, 23 years of migraines and I had cystic acne, my hair was falling out. I mean, so many things were going wrong. I think it was the culmination of the stress. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And then, God, universe, source, creator guided me to sound and light therapy, which I thought is a little bit cuckoo because what would make you think you just lay in this light box and you could heal with sound and light? Don't you need shots and surgeries and medications and stand on your head and drink water upside down and do all kinds of stuff? Didn't make any sense. But then I started researching and started, thinking back of all the Buckminster Fuller and Edgar Cayce and all the books that my ex introduced me to, and said, well, shoot, Tesla and Einstein, and everything is energy and frequency. Medicine is the medicine of the future. You look at Emoto's work and the water molecules, and I started just absorbing all this information, Royal Reich, Wilhelm Reich, you name it. I was reading it. And I thought, we're vibrational beings of light. What the hell? Why aren't we healing with sound and light? Well, then you find out this is ancient technology. There's nothing new here, but I brought it together with sound, light, vibration, and setting an intention, using our mind as well as these other tools for our body.
Yeah, well said. And you talk about spiritual energy, and that's basically the energy that we cannot perceive physically, but it's all around, and that's what we can access to heal us.
Yeah, I just spoke to, on Saturday, I spoke to a doctor in Ecuador who they signed a contract for an egg yesterday. And we hit some level of communication. She really believes that the spiritual body needs to be healed to heal the physical body. But we hit some level of communication. She's speaking Spanish. We had a translator. I'm speaking English, and I'm nodding my head. I know exactly what she's saying, but I don't know what she's saying. But I knew we hit some level. We were all crying. It was quite comical. But we have this ability to communicate without knowing each other's language. We can still communicate. We can communicate with the trees. I can communicate with my horse. We went swimming with the dolphins a couple weeks ago in Key Largo. And the trainer says, you put your hand out like this. So if people are just listening to it, you put your hand out like you're going to accept some money from somebody. Okay. And she said, the dolphin will come up and put their nose, which, they call it the nose, in your hand. And then you lift your face to their nose and we'll take pictures like, they're kissing you. Okay, great. So she said, she called the dolphin off, like, you're done with her, and the dolphin wouldn't leave. And for that split second, and I'm telling you, it was just a second, but it made my life. We were one. Just that split second, we were one. And I've had those split seconds with my horse, but they're fleeting, far and few in between, because we're so busy in our mind. We're human doings, not human beings. But if we could just be present and be in the now, and I was totally present with that dolphin at that moment. And the trainer was even a little bit shocked. She's like, had to call her off again. And then she goes, well, I guess she's not done. 39-year-old dolphin. And, just imagine what she has seen and what she's experienced. And she just connected with me. I mean, what a gift.
Amazing. Truly amazing. Yeah, I had one like that recently, Gil, except I was biking in the trails and a red-tailed hawk attacked me twice. Dug his heels into, but it was I hate to say it was a wonderful experience. There was a power, those claws brought in there was a charge, and I felt again on the edge of death. I felt so alive. As they say, the womb of death is where you find eternal life, this sort of dichotomy. And I think it's everywhere if you're honest with yourself and nature. And very important, you mentioned too, is intention. I think that's probably an essential part, because your book also addresses too, and I've talked about it before, there was a time in this country before the Rockefellers and the pharmaceuticals decided to do what they did. And I just read that the average lifespan of a man in this country has gone down to 72. We are going backwards in every metric. We are going backwards. For a developed country, the United States is, deaths of children and all, terrible. But there was a time when the doctor would, no matter what you had, would say, the famous take 2 pills and call me in the morning. Those pills were usually sugar pills, but they worked. It probably would have worked on your migraine back then, because you would have put yourself in a field of energy and got it. So, but then they got rid of the placebo. The power of the brain got negated, didn't it?
Well, it's funny that you said that because I actually wet my bed until I was about 8 years old.
Mhm.
And now I realize the doctor gave me these little red pills and said, these are going to help you stop wetting your bed. And I swear to God, they were nothing but sugar pills. But I
Right.
stopped wetting my bed and I was making my mom crazy because every day she had 3 kids and every day she had to wash my sheets. And, it was just a hot mess. I was hiding behind the couch in the morning going, oh my God, I can't believe I peed
Did it
again.
again.
So yeah, but the little red pill, and I don't think it was anything.
Yeah, so intention's important because, as you say, we do have a natural power to heal ourselves and to access these energies.
Yeah, no, I,
Innate
I
in
think that
humans.
we had to have intention with the egg because when two or more come together, so you have the practitioner and you have you setting your intention before you go into the egg. And people call it the manifestation egg, they call it the intention egg, they call it a lot of different things. But before you go in there, you set that intention and somebody else is holding that space for you for that intention. So powerful. So, so powerful.
Awesome. Well, why don't we talk about the harmonic egg? What exactly is it for those who want to know? I mean, we've been saying egg, and I look at the pictures. People are going, this is some Star Trek stuff." But again, it's
Well,
based on ancient modalities, alternative healing, or not even alternative, how people healed 100 years ago, even.
when they say alternative medicine, who has altered native medicine and who's the alternative?
Yeah. I think
I
integrative
love that.
medicine is a better word for it because
Yeah,
it draws from different traditions.
absolutely. And so I've been watching that show Orville by Seth MacFarlane. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but I really like the messages in that about the different beings and the different species and stuff. But if sometimes I look at him like the egg looks like it came straight out of Orville, off the Orville ship, right? So, so what it is, it's a large wooden egg. That sounds funny, but what the intention is, the intention of it is like the Taj Mahal.
Mhm.
Every piece of it, from the type of wood, the panels on the outside of 12 sides of a dodecagon, to the hexagon platform, to the circle that you see that looks like an eclipse when you're leaned back in the zero gravity chair, is all, everything has a story. Every piece of that egg, every dimension of that egg has a story. So we use the golden ratio, we use the sacred geometry, we use wood because it's a material that doesn't hold information and energy like a crystal. Wood has antiseptic properties, wind has spiritual properties. And it seems to have made the egg a living technology or a conscious technology. And it feels very much conscious. And the acoustics are beautiful. So you're reclined in a zero gravity chair surrounded by wood. Inside of a golden mean sacred geometry egg that has a hexagon platform, which many people know that it can be like a portal. And you listen to music for 40 minutes, music that is not MP3 files, music from musicians that have a high heart energy and have, the passion for helping people to heal. They're all holding an intention when I coach them. I coach them to hold the space of love, not for an ex-partner, but more for a space like Santorino in Greece, or their horse or their dog, that kind of love. And they're playing this music, and each piece of music, I say, okay, I want flute and wind and water in this one, and I want drumming and a gentle breeze and dolphins in this one, because I'm looking to find the intention of the piece of music. What color intention? When I listen to the pieces of music in the egg, I see the colors that are coming through. So it's a gift that I've been developing. Every gift is a muscle. We have to use it. We have to develop it. So you have this 40 minutes of music and this 360-degree beautiful surround sound kind of wooden egg. And then you have 10 minutes of complete silence. And the silence to me is golden. The silence is helping you integrate and hold that allowing your nervous system to say, okay, what happened in the last 40 minutes? And letting you really digest that.
There's
And
a complete silence, like those,
complete silence, yeah.
where, yeah, but it
You
freaks
may
me out.
have, yeah, well, I mean, how many times do we have complete silence in our days besides
Most
none?
people never have.
No. And I will tell you, there are some locations that, maybe you can hear traffic outside. So there'll be like maybe an air purifier running or a fountain running outside the egg. So, but you're silence. It's silence. There's no music. You're sitting there and you're with your thoughts. You're with your blood flow. You're with your heart beating. You're with your aches, pains, your bliss, your joy, your emotions. You could cry. People process through a lot of stuff. And when you come out, you're a different person. It's really clearing a lot of trauma out of the cellular level, for you to have that amazing life that, you're here to have.
But you use light therapy too.
So there's colored lights.
Mm-hmm.
There's colored lights. So when you set your intention with the practitioner and you say, well, I want to work on, say, maybe Parkinson's or allergies or something, there's color intentions for that, and there's music selections, and they all get a binder of, training manual with a cheat sheet, and they can kind of flip through and say, okay, for Parkinson's, we're, after we reboot the nervous system, and let me get back to that. For Parkinson's, we'll use some greens and yellow lights, and we'll use some drumming, because a lot of Parkinson's is just heavy metals. And so we got to get those heavy metals shaken up and out. That's where they get the tremors from. Can also be from a lack of B12. There could be other things as well, but most Parkinson's that I've seen is heavy metals. But when you have your body in a diagnosis of Parkinson's, that's the normal for the body. The body, oh, this is normal. This is what our body is. So you have to reboot the nervous system just like you would reboot a computer to reboot to a new normal.
Fascinating. And so you mean there's a practitioner, you just don't go in there. Somebody gives you, kind of guides you and tweaks things and makes sure that you get the right type of healing. And what are the different things the harmonic egg can treat?
So we can't treat or do anything because the FDA doesn't let us. So it's a relaxation device, right? Mm-hmm. But if the body doesn't know disease by name, and we know that our bodies are perfect, and we know we can snap a bone and our body can heal, and we know we can gouge our arm and that's going to seal up and scar up and heal and scab over, why do we believe that we can't heal from anything? Mm-hmm. I think we've been duped. So
we most certainly have. We most certainly have.
When your nervous system is out of whack and you're stuck in fight or flight, and you're being chased by the bear all day long with taxes and work and kids and, relationships, then your body can't heal. So we're putting that body into a reboot, into a balance. And we also know the number one killer in the United States and probably the world is stress.
Stress.
So it's a relaxation device. Wink, wink.
Yeah, we all gotta go underground in these days. Even certain words can't be said on YouTube and so forth. These are the times. Yeah, you are. Gail, you're a smuggler. You're a buccaneer, a pirate, you might say. You are an outlaw. But those are the individuals who build a new future for us. And this has done well. I mean, your book does show clients, some of them are famous composers and people who are very rational, very successful, and they're very happy with the results they've had.
Absolutely. Well, I think the testimonials speak for themselves. And I think that, science is one thing, but until we can have a device that can test subtle energies, I can't come up with science, but the testimonials speak for themselves. And when science says they do controlled studies, and a controlled studies, consists of an 18-year-old to a 60-year-old, and this is their controlled study, and then they give the drug to a 70-year-old and a 12-year-old, I just don't think that that's science. So I get challenged a lot by doctors. I get challenged a lot, for people looking for the science. That's why I wrote the book. There's 90 references to sound working, light working, alternative, medicine type things working. And so, that's the science that I put out there. I mean, there's thousands of years of sound and light therapy, from the Aborigines to the Native Americans, to the Greeks, to the Tibetans, to the, the
The
Egyptians.
Hermeticists,
Yeah,
the ancient
yeah.
Egyptians, yeah.
And then what? Hermes, your podcast is called Finding Hermes. Didn't he invent the lyre?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There you go.
He did. Yeah, the master of
Well, and
music and all that. And of course, your book talks a lot about a sage that everybody on this show loves, Pythagoras, and
yes.
spheres of the music and all that. And Plato, to enter Plato's academy, you had to play a musical instrument, because to Plato that was akin to knowledge and health and understanding the gods.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I resonate so much with the Greeks and the Egyptians. And so I feel like people feel that energy in there. When I went to Greece, in Asclepiosis, hospital, if you will. And I mean, my first Hotmail account, which I was 20 some years old, was Athena@hotmail.com.
Cool.
I don't think you could get that now. I mean, I canceled it, but it would be Athena 300,852,022,000 at hotmail.com, right? But I've always really resonated with the Greek and the Egyptian. I'm sure I had past lives there.
The goddess of wisdom. And it's interesting too. A pagan friend of mine showed me how deep the Khan is. Asclepius's healing staff is a staff with one serpent. Hermes has the two serpents, and a lot of hospitals do the one with the two serpents, which is bad because, again, Hermes is the god of the mind, but he's also the god of tricks. In other words, you're going to get some blowback and things are going to go crazy. So he thinks that some elite or somebody did that on purpose. In ancient times, you would not put Hermes' staff in like a temple of healing or dreams. Hermes was for art and music and making deals and all that. So careful out there.
I know. I think we've been duped and tricked. And I'm reading this book by Barbara Marciniak. I think it's called Earth. It's a Palladian saying, listen, we duped you guys so bad and we took away so much of your power that we have to now tell you, you are powerful. We can't go to the next level. The universal, the union, if you will, the universal union won't let them expand as a species because they duped another species. And I mean, it's interesting if you think about it. I love this deep thinking philosophical stuff because to me, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, some people might think I need to go to the nut house, but to me, that makes sense. Yeah, if you duped another civilization and a species, and you have to make it right. And so they've channeled this book and said, we're making it right. We're telling you how powerful you are. But we just wanted to be the most powerful ones. But now we can't evolve as a species until we make that right.
Oh, good. Well, get busy because we need it. We are on the verge here. And as we get a little bit to the end, towards the end of this great conversation, Gail, again, your life is full of synchronicities, pivots. What advice do you have for people who are looking for their own will, their own higher purpose? I mean, because sometimes it's hard. You don't know if it's an accident. You don't know if you should just go with it. I mean, there's a saying I love which says, jump out of the plane and the parachute will appear. And I think that's been your life much of the time. You're like, I'm going to do a documentary. I'm going to build this, the Harmonic Egg. You do it and then things appear. But what's advice for people? How do they find their higher purpose to be fulfilled, or at least know where the gods want them? Where does fate want you?
Well, that's putting me on the spot there. I think there's two emotions that, we have: love and fear. So, I mean, you can say hate. Well, root cause is fear. You're hating somebody because you're afraid. So, so there's love and fear. You have to stay out of fear, for one thing. And I was up on stage one time talking to a group of entrepreneurs, and I was saying, you got to be willing to sacrifice everything. And a guy stood up and he's like, have you? And I'm like, I have lost everything 3 times. So sit down.
Yeah, and you are on the verge of, you couldn't even pay for food at times in your life. You have to borrow money. You were being evicted. I mean, over and over, and you kept at it.
It's a bad country song. It was like, I lost my dog, lost my house, lost my job. Yeah. Let's play that thing backwards, right? And I'm going to start over again. but you can't let things let you, bring you down. If you have something that excites you, you have to go for it. And, there is good and evil. There are things that, you're driving down the road and you had a sick feeling in your stomach and you go, I don't think I'm going to go that way on the road. There's a difference with that feeling versus the feeling of excitement and bliss. And you can't wait to wake up in the morning and get started on what you're doing. And so many people don't live there, but because they live in fear. Well, if I don't have this job, then I can't pay the bills and I can't do this. But I will tell you what, I lost everything until I found my path. Once I found my path, everything has worked out perfectly. My signature in my email says, let it flow. And I'm actually coming out with a new technology, a new invention. It's called Let It Flow Therapy. It's the lift. So Let It Flow Therapy, lift. And it's going to be for the home, sound and light chamber for the home. You need to go get a lift? You just go into the lift, right? So, I keep coming up with these new downloads, but when it's right. You have to stay present. You have to stay in the now. If you're looking to the past, and Elvis used to say, you're only as big as your last hit record. So if you're looking to the past for all the successes that you had, that's not the future. You are now. You are right here now. So, I had so many successes in project management, engineering, and telecom, and Hollywood. You're only as big as your last hit record. So I wasn't anybody. I was nobody. So when the universe took all that away from me, and I didn't know who I was, then this came through with working with sound and light and this and that. And I thought, what? That's the only door that's open for me right now. I'm going to walk through it. And everything has worked since then. So sometimes you think, you're living in fear, but if you walk through that door that is your purpose, you got to trust. Everything's going to work. It's going to flow.
Beautifully said, Gail. But as Frank Herbert said in Dune, fear is the mind killer. How do you stop fear? I've done many shows on Finding Hermes about fear, and I've said fear at its core is us not wanting to die. It's an instinctual, primordial thing where we have to control every minute and every moment of the day so we don't die, which is fine. But then to evolve as creatures of light, we have to realize we're not in control of life. We have to embrace death, and we have to attack fear. What do you do to attack fear? What are some of the techniques you would say that have worked?
John Wayne says fear is being scared to death and saddling up anyway.
Oh, you already got it. He was a wise man. He beat me by so many decades.
And Wayne Dyer used to say, do something every day that scares you. So I did that for 7 years. I said every day I'm going to do something that scares me, whether it was public speaking or going somewhere I didn't want to go. So it's a muscle, like we talked about earlier. Everything is a muscle. You can develop that muscle to not live in any fear. And I've developed that over the years. Yeah. Do I still get scared sometimes? I had some crazy drunk people pull into my driveway. I was out in the barn and, I was like, what am I going to do? I got to get from the barn to the house where my, firearm is. And, so was my heart racing? Yeah. But did I just curl up in a ball and freak out? No. I went around the back of the barn. I jumped over my little rock wall. I got into the garage and you got to think. My one mentor, he created a program. He's passed now. Roger Anthony created Crocodiles, Not Water Lilies. And the crocodile's name was Rampa, ROMPA. So the first thing you do in a situation like that, you relax. That's R. O, observe. M, manage. P, patience. The last thing you should do is act. And most people go right to act. And that's where we make a lot of mistakes. Relax, observe, manage, patience, act. Rampa, crocodile. I'll never forget the training. He was such a brilliant man. He was the one that taught me about life when we were in a seminar, and he passed a piece of paper to me. So I was so antsy. I just didn't want to be there. And it said LIFE. Let it flow effortlessly. And that changed my life.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, great advice. That's for sure. So tell the audience, I will have it on the show notes when I do the video version. Well, this is the video version, but I, of course, will throw all these cool flashing words and stuff about, yeah, about Gail. And but for those listening on audio or just video, where can they find out more about you and the harmonic egg? I love the egg, of course, because it's a great symbol of the soul, of birth. You know, the ancient stories of Mary Magdalene holding an egg. It's just a great image.
It's the most powerful shape in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
The cosmic egg, right? Well, it's pretty easy. Harmonicegg.com. Boom. That's it. The book's there, music's there, locations are there. Everything is on that website. So that's the go-to website.
And location, and also if somebody wants to become a partner and become somebody who uses this, that's where the information is too.
Right. So every location, we're worldwide now, which is blowing my mind. We have over 100 locations worldwide, and I can't even imagine people are lined up to buy these things and they've never even tried it. Mm-hmm. That's not my personality. I got to try it before I buy it. I take it for a test drive.
Well, we need it more than ever. We need that integrative medicine, and we need more options. And that's the purpose of this podcast, to tell people that, look, if you want to stick to the mainstream, your choice, but there are many choices out there. Find what works for you. And there is a healing modality. There is a way to deal with depression, anxiety, all these things, because we're made in the image of the divine, and thus we have so much more power than we believe. Well, Gail, thank you very much for coming on Finding Hermes, and good luck with everything.
Thank you, and you have a good trip.
Thank you very much.
And there you have it, an excellent conversation with Gail Lynn. Yes, if you see some critters in the background, there are some kittens that are playing, and I haven't been able to get all of them under the bed. So we'll just have to wing it and hope these little kitten children, these bass, behave, which I doubt they will. But anyway, great conversation. As we mentioned, this interview was done on August 16th, on the death of Elvis Presley. But due to my trip to Portugal and some other disruptions, it's coming out now. And that included the family getting very sick after the trip and other stuff. But now is a good time. The movie Elvis has come out on HBO. Recently, I watched it. I enjoyed it. I'm afraid that Tom Hanks as a actor is hopeless, but the movie was pretty good. But then again, I have watched basically all of Elvis's movies, so I don't know what new content can be put on the table. However, I have not watched Protect the King, and that's definitely on my list to watch. I should amend what I said about Elvis being the king of America. I would say he's actually the shaman of America, America as the nation more than 200 years ago when it was founded. He is the shaman of America, the spiritual pope of this country. To support this argument beyond what Gail and I talked about in the interview, and for all subs who are listening in audio, I'm going to include an old interview I did with fellow Chicagoan Gary Tillery on his book, The Seeker King, a spiritual biography of Elvis Presley. You're going to get a lot about the esoteric leanings and impact of the man himself. I hope you cats enjoy it too, because you're definitely being noisy as usual. Other than that, I don't have much else. As I cover towards the end of the interview, I hope you have more choices to heal the body and the mind. As I said, the body don't lie. And as Gail said, the body doesn't know the names of diseases. It just wants to heal. Same with the mind, because the mind is not a suspicious mind, but it is the mind of Hermes. We all have the mind of Hermes, the trickster and the great creator of new possibilities. So, as always, I hope you have, you have Hermes to walk through those doors with the god of the mind. You're no longer caught in a trap. And you can now lay your cards down on the table and become transparent to the transcendent, as both Joseph Campbell and Mary Magdalene said, specifically in the Nag Hammadi Library's Dialogue with the Savior. So thank you very much. And again, for all subs, get ready after the little music for a very fascinating interview with Gary Tillery on, yes, the shamanistic aspects of Elvis Presley.